Hey everyone, Golden Ninja 3000 here again. Today I'm comparing our two large LEGO Razor Crest sets from Star Wars The Mandalorian. On top we have the version from 2020, right? I was about to say 2018, but that's before The Mandalorian came out. And that was our very first LEGO Razor Crest ever. And then, of course, on the bottom we have the UCS Razor Crest, which is one of the biggest Star Wars sets ever made, the only direct-to-consumer set based on a Disney Plus show, and it retailed for $600 when it released last year. It is still available though, so I don't know why I'm talking about it in the past tense. But I wanted to do a comparison video because I love the Razor Crest. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I do like The Mandalorian, and I love buying Lego Star Wars ships just because I really like playing with them. And the Razor Crest has probably my favorite design of like any main ship in the Star Wars universe, and a lot of that is due to how lived in and how spacious of an interior the ship has in the show and in LEGO form. Before we get into the comparison, though, I do want to remind everyone that I am an employee of the LEGO Group. However, all opinions expressed in these videos are my own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the LEGO Group, and LEGO is a registered trademark of the LEGO Group of companies, which does not sponsor, authorize, or endorse this site. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time we've ever gone from just a regular minifigure compatible version of a vehicle straight to a UCS version with no remake in between. We do have a little microfighter version of the Razor Crest, but this is the only minifigure compatible one. And of course, it is a shame that we're getting the UCS one like 2 years, because it came out 2022. So it came out like 2 years after the Razor Crest blew up on The Mandalorian, so not the best timing, but I'm still glad it was made because it's just such a cool ship. It's really hard to show both of these at once, I have to be perfectly honest, because the UCS one is just gigantic. Like, I don't even know how long it is, but I think it's like almost 30 inches long. And the minifigure scale one is like a pretty good size, but it just can't stack up to the UCS. And because it's such a unique shape, it's just hard to put these things side by side. I'm going to do my absolute best to show you guys all of the iconic angles though. So here are both of the ships from the front, and here's where you can immediately see a difference between UCS quality and regular Lego set quality. Because not the UCS, the regular Razor Crest set on the right, it's a fantastic set. It's one of my favorite minifigure compatible Star Wars sets ever, but the UCS one is just so much more polished. Look at the engines. The UCS one is like fully finished and smoothed over like everywhere, whereas the minifigure compatible one is a little rougher around the edges because let's be honest, it's hard to get circular like construction perfect in Lego form, especially at a smaller scale. And so you have like a lot more segmentation in the engines on the smaller version than you do on the bigger one. And then even at the front of the UCS version is like 100% accurate, super detailed. The same goes for the laser cannons. And those features are still completely present on the smaller one, and they are detailed on the smaller one. They just can't compare with larger detail, which is like a very basic point to make, but I think it's worth repeating. But something else that's interesting is that you can actually see some pretty significant color differences across the two sets, which I definitely wasn't expecting. It wasn't until I built the UCS version that I noticed how much dark gray is on the 2021. I didn't mind the dark gray there, but again, the newer one is just way more polished and it looks almost cleaner, even though the Razor Crest was not dirty, but it was a well loved ship. It had scuffs, it had marks, it had clearly been used for a couple of years. And I feel like the smaller set, it honestly makes me feel more like that. It makes me feel the age of it a little bit more than the UCS version, which is interesting because the UCS version is so much more detailed. But you can see those stripes on the ship, they were done in dark tan on the 2021, which I think looks fine. I mean, I liked the dark tan. It was subtle, but it does kind of read more like dirt because dark tan is also used to represent dirt on larger Star Wars ships. Like you have some dirt on the 2020 version. Actually, I can zoom in. Why am I pointing? There we go. So you do have some dirt that you can see kind of like underneath that wedge. And then you do have dark tan, like tiny little one by one pieces on the 2022 version representing dirt as well. But the stripes are done in this bright light orange color. And I think that is more accurate to the show. I think it looks really good. I love the way that they kind of flow from brick built detail into stickers. I do wish the color was better on those stickers though, because you can clearly see that they are not the same color as the light bluish gray bricks. And that does kind of bother me because I mean it's a very obvious color difference. It's not something that's like super subtle. Both of these sets do represent the landing gear on the Razor Crest, of course, extremely detailed and super built up on the UCS version, whereas we just have those basic little ski pieces on the 2021. But hey, it worked, and they did try to build like the kind of landing gear assembly on the side. And again, it's just interesting how close the shaping is. You know, like the shaping hasn't really changed from UCS to or from minifigure compatible to UCS. I think the biggest difference is in the engines because the engines on the 2020 version, they're just like these large wall panel pieces with some stickers on them and then like a big Technic wheel, a barrel, and then some smaller details. But the engines on the UCS version, holy cow, they're just insane. I don't think there's any stickers on them at all. It's just all brick built detail. They were such like a treat to build because like yeah, they are kind of repetitive, but they're just very different engines than anything else we ever see on a Star Wars ship. And they do bring in some familiar things, like there's another Technic wheel like right there. But like the rear of the engines is fully built up. I love the little like chain link thing that's going on at the front. And yeah, I think the engines are where the UCS version really shines because that is where the shaping is the most different. Coming around to the back, you can really see just how good the back of the UCS engines look. I mean, oh, it's a little bit cut off there, but I like the glow on the minifigure compatible version, but they're just so much better on the UCS one, as you would expect. But looking at the back, I also really appreciate how detailed the top of the UCS Razor Crest is. Let me see if I can get us like a higher vantage point on that. But yeah, there's just so much greebling on top of there. It's just really, really detailed. The studs kind of provide some of the same texture to the minifigure version, but again, I mean, I feel like I sound like a broken record. You can't compare with UCS level detail. I just think it's interesting how close some of these areas do seem. And one of those areas is like the escape pod on top, but we'll take a look at that in a minute. I wanted to talk about the back here because you do have like the same kind of triangular rear sections represented. It's fully built up with bricks on the UCS version, whereas it's just a plate on the minifigure one. But you do have a ramp at the back of both of these models, and that is a feature that I think was very necessary based on the show, and I'm glad it was brought into both of them. So it's like just a really basic ramp. If I can just pull that down, there we go. It's a really basic ramp on the minifigure version, and then on the UCS one, you've got like these hydraulic rams. I was about to say hydraulic, but no, you have these hydraulic rams and it looks amazing. Like the ramp is one of my favorite details on the UCS set. Even though it is like a bunch of anti-studs and you can't pose minifigures on it, I think that's definitely the worst part of it. But like the feeling of pulling it down, the level of detail there, I think is just really, really impressive. Although, of course, there was nothing wrong with the ramp on the original. But moving on to some of the finer details, I did mention that we have escape pods on both sets. So here is the one on the original one from 2020. It's a good looking escape pod. Can I zoom out? There we go. It's a good looking escape pod, but I mean, I'm going to say it again. The one on the UCS version is just more polished. It's in pretty much the same spot, and I think that this is something invented for the Lego sets. Like, I don't think that this was in the show. I certainly don't remember seeing it if it was. But yeah, I mean, they're very similar in shape. Oh, and even overall size. I've never done a direct comparison of them, but it's interesting that this one is actually bigger. But this one has kind of more defined engines. It even has glass, which is very impressive. And I do have a Scout Trooper in there because I still have my minifigures placed the from the minifigure compatible version, but my minifigures from the UCS one are not currently placed inside. So there's the Scout Trooper. This one can also fit just one minifigure, although they don't clip in with studs or anything. It's a nice function. I always like seeing escape pods in LEGO sets. And the last thing we'll take a look at before getting into the interior itself are the two cockpits. The windshield section on the Razor Crest, I think, is really well done on both of these sets because you have very roomy cockpits, you have nicely decorated windshields. This is a sticker that lines up with two printed parts, and overall, I think that honestly for a UCS set, this isn't the best look because very tiny gaps are created. It's just not quite seamless. Whereas for the minifigure version, that was a brand new mold that was made just for this set. And I'm honestly used to seeing custom made glass pieces. I mean, glass in quotation marks, I mean like windshield pieces in UCS sets. You know, they've done it for Batmobiles, they've done it for several Star Wars ships, they've done it for creator expert cars. So I really would have preferred to see a custom made piece made for this from Lego. I mean, this definitely works. I just think that it's not quite as nice as what we got previously. But let's go ahead and take a look at the cockpit on the 2020 set first. You can just open it by pulling up on this bar. And then inside, I've got Baby Yoda, or Grogu, in the Mandalorian's lap. And you can also fit another minifigure behind him. And I really like how much space there was in here for just, again, a regular minifigure scale set. So the Mandalorian has plenty of room. He just has one little control panel over there. Yeah, there's like nothing on the sides or anything, but that's totally fine for a set of this size. And again, I think that that was a pretty perfect representation of the cockpit. You could also tilt this section forward, which I guess I should zoom out a little bit for. Grief Karga is kind of getting in the way, so let me see. Yeah, I'll just break that off. But then you had weapon storage at the back, which is just a very good use of space, and I love having a place to clip weapons in, so I very much appreciated that. I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back on while we move over to the UCS version, which of course is a UCS set, so it has a ton more detail. You can remove the entire cockpit section. It's not clipped in with anything. And then with that off, you can see just how insanely detailed this thing is. I never did a review on this set, but holy cow, there's just so much detail. There's so many little control panels everywhere. You have a very nicely built up captain's seat for the Mandalorian. You have Baby Yoda's little toe ball thing that he liked to play with. This can swivel, it can adjust on multiple ends. And then you have two seats behind him, which is again fantastic. Like it's honestly just perfect. And then this thing is just so long. It's like really hard to maneuver. You also have some jumpers on the floor so that you could pose minifigures standing there. And then there is a little door. Like you get the door to the Mandalorian's cockpit, which is again just a really nice inclusion. And opening that up, you even have the hatch that goes down into the rest of the ship. But what I really like about this thing, and I have no idea where to grab this set from, honestly, because it's been a while since I built it. That's the danger with doing videos on sets that you built months ago, is you kind of forgot exactly how everything goes together, so it's much more likely that you break something. But anyway, back here you have some more nice references, if it'll please focus on what I'm talking about. But basically you have the frog eggs from that one episode where Baby Yoda was eating that poor lady's unborn babies. And it's not really going to focus, but you have a clip for weapons, you have a little jumper back there, and you also have a spot to put Baby Yoda's like little hover cradle thing. And now it decides to focus. So this space is just honestly perfect to me. Like it has everything you could possibly want. But what's even cooler is that this whole thing just lifts out. This entire thing just disconnects, and that gives you a much better look at it. It leaves behind like the actual cockpit area, but it allows you to start getting into the interior. And to get into the rest of the interior on the UCS Razor Crest, all you have to do is just pick up the engines and remove them entirely. And these things are freaking heavy because of how built up they are. So there's just barely enough room for me to put them down. And then we can start getting in to everything that you can see on both of these ships. The way that you get into the 2021 is not nearly as elaborate. It doesn't really have any lifting off stuff. You just kind of fold down these side panels, which I hope you can kind of see, but we'll do a closer look. We'll start with the interior on the smaller set because, of course, it did come out first. So you can just fold down all of these panels, and that's really how you get access into the interior. You do have like these smaller little ramps on the side, and that is a feature that's consistent with the larger UCS set as well, where you can just get access for minifigures, but obviously humans need a little bit more space. But you can even fold down the panels in front, and this is why this was one of my favorite Star Wars sets, because there's just very good use of space in this entire thing. And I don't think you can say that about a lot of Lego Star Wars sets. You know, a lot of the times I feel like the interior, or we don't get enough of an interior. That's really the problem that I have with a lot of spaceships sometimes. But this one, I think, definitely used its space well. So I'm going to try to bring this down to a slightly lower level so that we can zoom in a little bit. Like I said, I have posed up figures. So in here, I do have IG-11, right? I don't remember what his name was, to be perfectly honest. But I've got the droid in there, and then there's Cara Dune as well. Up front, we just have some storage for extra spring-loaded missiles, which I forgot to mention are actually found right up here. There's nothing that actually shoots on the UCS version. I really like play features, so I wouldn't have minded seeing missiles on the UCS set, but it's obviously not a necessity. But I really just want us to get a better look up here because okay, I might have to take out the minifigures for this because you've got the Mandalorian's bounties, and these just slide right into place, and they're pretty easy to take out. But those are just a couple of stickers on some 1 by 2 by whatever how tall those are. I don't know exactly panels. Other than that, though, it is super, super empty. There's just a lot of space to put figures. And then on this side, you do have the Mandalorian's sleeping quarters. And this is an area I love because it does feel like a little bedroom. It's separated from the rest of the ship. You have enough space to lie a minifigure down, and there's some stickers on the wall. So I really like this space. So as I mentioned on the big set, we still do have similar features. So first of all, this is an opening ramp. It's a little bit harder to get into, but that is super nice. I should probably, there we go, make that a little bit more linear. But this is a wonderful doorway for minifigures to get in, and this space is huge. Like, you can pose some minifigures up in the doorway, but you can see that at least 2 would fit comfortably. Honestly, this is also why I really love this Razor Crest UCS version, because it's truly minifigure scale. And, you know, minifigure compatible sets are awesome. I love minifigure compatible sets, but when they're actually fully minifigure scale, I just feel like it's such a treat. So you do have the same door on the other side. I'm actually not going to show it to you guys because it's kind of repetitive. But none of these panels fold down or open. Instead, all of like the stuff on the top just gets removed. So I'm going to go ahead and lift the camera up. So hopefully we can get a slightly better angle. So in here, you also have the carbonite freezing chambers. These guys are like detachable little sub-assemblies. So I honestly kind of forget how you put them in there. Oh, they just clip into place. But this is what they look like. There are some similarities because I actually think that one of the stickers is exactly the same. This one. Or not exactly the same, but it's like the same guy that's frozen in there. And then we have that one that looks like Greedo. So I'm just going to leave those out. But I like that you have a lot of bounty storage. And then that other cell in there. Let me zoom a little bit closer. But that other cell is actually for the Mythrol minifigure, so you can actually recreate kind of freezing him in carbonite in real time. There's a ton of detail here, though. Like, you also have a security camera. There's some exposed wiring. That's just like the entrance where the loading ramp is. Then, let me see if I can get like up here. There's this thing on the ground, which honestly, I don't even know what that is. But this ship is way too long. It's kind of getting in the way of my tripod. But there's also, I mean, I can't really get a good look at it from here. Whoa. Okay, this whole thing just slipped off my desk and broke one of the legs. Okay, so that's the only problem with gigantic Lego sets is that they can be pretty fragile, and this one, the landing gear is definitely not the strongest, which I don't love. Like, there's a lot of little fiddly bits. Like, I mean, even this armor right here, I don't think it's supposed to be that loose. I think that's broken, and I don't really know how to fix it. So this is why sometimes minifigure compatible is a little bit better, because this is one of the most fragile large Lego sets I've ever handled. But I wanted to show you that up front you do have sleeping quarters for the Mandalorian. It's right underneath the cockpit. I think in universe the bathroom is supposed to be there, but they had to take it out because there wasn't enough room, which I mean I understand, and I would rather have a bed than a bathroom, but if you take the bed out, which I just broke something else, but it's fairly easy to remove. If you take it out, there's like a little gap in the floor there with some exposed wiring, and that's where you can have Grogu doing some like work in the ship. So that's a pretty nice space as well. And then on the other side of the carbon freezing stuff, you have a bunch more little references. So there's some Imperial crates there. There's the blue cookies that Grogu was eating. There's this really cute like baby on board bumper sticker thing. There's this whole cabinet, which I think this is removable as well. Perfect. Very glad I don't need to keep trying to get into that space. But this is the armory with a ton of weapons. So there's lots of references and details that are accurate to the show, because you also have Boba Fett's armor there and some more weapons on the wall. That's obviously not accurate to the first episode of the show, which is what this is kind of based on primarily, the UCS set, I mean. But I really like having all of those references in there, and it is a very detailed interior and has a lot more going on than the smaller one. And lastly, I wanted to show the minifigures that came with the UCS Razor Crest. You saw all of the ones that came with the 2020, plus Cara Dune, who wasn't included in that set. And we do have overlap with the Mandalorian and Grogu, although this is a super detailed version of the Mandalorian with an excellent helmet print that I really, really love. But we also have two exclusive characters with Mithral and Queel and the Blur, which is pretty cool. And these were great inclusions to see in a UCS set. But overall, I mean, even though it's kind of ridiculous to compare a $600 like made for adult set to a $130 play set for kids, I think that it's still worth doing this comparison because I mean, let me get a better angle here, but I just think that you get a lot of stuff in the minifigure compatible version that you don't get even in a UCS set. And a really big thing that I would say you get with a smaller set is just ease of play. Or not even play, just ease of handling. That's what it is. Because you don't buy a UCS set to play with it. But the Razor Crest is honestly the perfect example of something that looks amazing on display, but it's really fragile and finicky to handle. And it's kind of just a pain to touch. Like, you don't want to pick it up because it's so hard to put back down just because it's heavy. And again, the proportions are so weird just on the in universe vehicle. So honestly, I might prefer the smaller one. That feels really strange to say, but it's just, I mean, even getting this thing off my shelf, even turning it around on my desk to do this video, it's just annoyed me like 3 or 4 times where I've just like groaned, and I don't love having that feeling with a large Lego set. So I don't know. I mean, I definitely respect the UCS Razor Crest. I still like it a lot, but the smaller one looks excellent, has a ton of interior space. It's got most of the same interior details, to be quite honest. And it's just it's like I think one of the best Lego Star Wars like play sets ever. So that's how I feel about the Razor Crest sets. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, and check out my website goldenninja3000.com, and I'll see you guys in more videos soon. Bye for now.